the Hot Take Hockey Podcast with your hosts, Lucas and John Viveiros.
Hey everyone, this is the Hot Take Hockey Podcast Show, Episode 2. I'm John Viveiros. This is the legend, Lucas Viveiros, a little NHL represent. And we're excited to bring you the show for the whole season. I hope you guys enjoyed Episode 1, just a little bit of an intro to talk about ourselves, our goals for this show, and just what we got coming. So we're so excited for this episode. We have a huge guest on this show, and we're finally able to reveal who it is. So two-time Cup champ, 11-year NHLer Kris Versteeg is coming on the show today. So he's going to come and talk about his career, latest NHL news, guys that he played with who have been on the move. He'll talk about his company that he's gotten going with his brothers post-career, Klevr. I'll talk about it here because big time respects to Versteeg for coming on, and Klevr is the sponsor for the show. So just to talk about Klevr quick, because we want to give Versteeg some shout. Klevr streamlines the video sharing process between coaches, parents, and athletes. Klevr also is a marketplace where you can reach out to some of the top coaches on the planet for instant video feedback and buy their skills, drills, and practices. So from what I've got from Versteeg, and Lucas will talk a little bit about his interactions leading into us getting him on the show. It seems really cool. It seems really interactive and convenient for young players and players of all ages to get in contact with former NHLers, skill guys, coaches, whoever it is. And it seems just really convenient. So Lucas, excited for Episode 2 here. Just your interaction and what, obviously we watched Versteeg with the Leafs and a few other teams. What was your kind of, I would say, like, what did you get out of Versteeg's career watching him over the years? And now obviously talking to him personally, just through communication and leading into the show and being able to get him on.
Yeah. First thoughts on Kris. Awesome guy. Like, I'm so happy he was down to do this with us. Like, I'm so excited for you guys to see the interview. But Kris, he's got a family with a couple young kids. So that's kind of what inspired him to do Klevr, because he wanted to, teach his kids the way of the game in a different way than he was taught. So that's really what inspired him and his brother to get this thing going. As an NHLer, I mean, Kris Versteeg was everything I loved in a hockey player, right? It's a guy who he buries the puck, but what does he do? He tries every shift. He leaves it out on the ice. So when he came to the Leafs in 2010, I was like stoked, over the moon, because he had just won a cup with the Blackhawks. But yeah, this guy, he's been around the league. He's played for 7 different teams, but he's really known for those times on the Blackhawks when he won the cup twice. But a Leaf memory for me, a big Leaf memory, was one of the goals he scored to tie the game versus Boston. And I think it was Caberlet who sent him the pass, if I'm not mistaken. But Caberlet was on the ice. Yeah. Caberlet, Kadri, Versteeg. Like, it was awesome to see him on the Leafs, even if it was only for one short year there. But thrilled to get him for you guys, and ask him some different questions about his time in the league, as well as his passions right now with Klevr.
Yeah, honestly, really excited. So you guys will see Kris later on the show. We're going to get him on this episode. And yeah, as I said, talk about some latest NHL news. And it's kind of funny and this was unintentional completely. Like, us getting Versteeg on was already, like, we were already getting it in motion. And then the Kadri signing happens. The Monahan trade happens. And Kessel now signs with Vegas, and Versteeg played with all 3 of those guys. So it's just kind of funny how that works. So we're going to get Versteeg's thoughts on all 3 of those moves and all 3 of those players. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it. So just for our own opinions, Lucas, we'll get Versteeg's thoughts. The Kadri signing. I think for yourself, you have a guy in the same household as you who's the biggest Nazem Kadri fan on the planet. Yep. So for what you know from Nick, seeing Kadri win with the Avs, for these constant rumors that went on for weeks, like, again, no disrespect, but there was, like, John Shannon was going on shows. Like, a lot of analysts were going on shows
for the Islanders.
Kadri is going to the Islanders 100%.
Yep.
This will be done within the week. This will be announced within the week. And then he signs with the Flames. So what was your thoughts on that? I mean, I'll give my thoughts, and I've already kind of made a video on it, but what was your thoughts when all that went down? And what was Nick's thoughts, who were like the biggest Kadri fan in the house? Yeah,
I think the Islanders were kind of always there, checking in on Kadri. But at the end of the day, for one, I mean, Calgary, I think, presents a better option for Kadri to win right now, especially after the trades that they made after they lost Gaudreau and Tkachuk, bringing in Huberdeau, bringing in Weegar. So I think the Islanders were always lurking and thought about signing him seriously. But I don't know if that was Kadri's, first choice. But I think it's a great fit. Like personally, we can go into detail later or on future shows about the Calgary Flames, but I think they're built right now, like for playoffs. This might be a hot take, better than they were, with Gaudreau and Tkachuk. Like I really believe, adding a guy like Kadri who's had success against McDavid in the past with the Leafs, like shutting him down. And he's always been known as a shutdown center against the other team's top players. I think, Calgary's going to get a lot out of him. Maybe not at the back end of that deal, but for present day right now, first couple of years, I think it's a great signing for Calgary. What about you, John?
Yeah, I'm not about to start our fresh, long episode 2 here by crapping on a newly signed Leaf, but Calle Jarnkrok was the other center, the other guy lined up the middle for the Calgary Flames in the playoffs. And not to say that it was like this huge disadvantage, huge letdown for the Calgary Flames in that aspect, because I look at Jacob Markstrom and what he did in that series or what he didn't do in that series. And obviously that big letdown, but you look at the matchup game and the Oilers for most of that series were running 3 centers, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins. And again, no disrespect, but you have Lindholm, Backlund, Jarnkrok, who Jarnkrok doesn't even play. Like he has played center, but Sutter played him there because he thought it was better for the matchup game. And I mean, now you have Kadri, who has proven to match up against Connor McDavid, along with 2 other centers who are very defensively reliable in Lindholm and Backlund. So you have now 3 centers who can match up against any centers in the league, basically. I mean, it's hilarious to me that I think Backlund's probably right away the best third line center in the league right now. I mean, I could be wrong on that. This is just off the top of my head, a statement, but I mean, if not one of the best, he's the best third line center in the game right now. So I think for the Calgary Flames, kind of what you said, I mean, Sutter's style and now Weegar, as much as Weegar had his defensive issues in the playoffs and got ripped to shreds a couple times against the Lightning, like you have a lot of good defensemen there for Calgary. And to me, I think Tanev is probably one of the most underrated defensive defensemen in the league. So, I mean, I look at the Calgary Flames and what you said. I mean, maybe you could talk about top end skill not being there to the level it was, but I mean, Huberdeau's still top notch. And you know what, you can debate the contract length all you want, but we're talking about for the now. And I think for the now, the Calgary Flames are still as competitive as they were, if not more in some ways. So I guess for you, did you expect the Calgary Flames to turn it around in any sense, or were you on that train of like, oh, this team's done, this team's going to the bottom of the Pacific real fast?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at it, as the days were going by there, I mean, it became pretty clear Gaudreau was probably going to leave. Obviously, as we got closer to free agency, as soon as free agency day hits, at midnight, he can no longer get the 8 years from Calgary. So obviously when that happened, you knew he was gone. And so you always were thinking, okay, how's this going to affect Tkachuk? And for him to, I think he did them a solid, giving them a full year to trade him before, he was a UFA, walked to UFA, right? So I mean, this has got to be one of the best performances from a GM in terms of the hand he was dealt in Brad Treliving, what he did here to bring in Huberdeau, Weegar, and Kadri. I mean, like you said, the top end skill might not be as prolific as it once was with Gaudreau and Tkachuk. I mean, you lost 2/3 of one of the best lines in the league. But like you were alluding to with that blue line it's got to be one of the best now, right? I mean, it doesn't have that maybe elite level defenseman that you can, think of when you think of the top ones in the game, like Hedman, Ayosi, Makar, but 1 through 6, it's pretty solid. And they got, if Markstrom can rebound from that terrible playoffs that he had, one of the best goalies in the league. So I'm high on Calgary, John. I'm really high on Calgary.
I was also just going to say, not to say that I'm going to entertain this conversation, but Flames fans on this high from getting Huberdeau and they getting Kadri were, I don't know, they were speculating that based on Makar's kind words about Calgary to Kadri that, Makar might make his home return come to Calgary, but I'm not gonna speculate on that front. But I mean, Calgary, they got a really complete defense. Maybe they go after that star one day, but definitely a complete defense, and a defense that Sutter will probably love. So just kind of, yeah, I mean, we know what Kadri can do. And at least for the very now, we saw what he did in the playoffs. If he's healthy, doesn't get suspended, we know how deadly he can be in the playoffs. So kind of transferring over to Monahan, and I kind of talked to you about this, and Thomas and I have a buddy that's related to Monahan. So it kind of worked funny that days before free agency, Monahan was getting married, and Johnny Gaudreau and many other Flames guys and former Flames guys were at this wedding. So it's like you have Gaudreau, Monahan, and other guys going to this wedding, that it's like a couple guys leaving, a couple guys that just recently left, and then now Monahan, who's gotten moved. And that's actually happened a couple times this offseason. Like Bjorkstrand got married, went on his honeymoon, and then he got told he was getting traded on his honeymoon. And then Monahan just got married, and now he's getting moved to Montreal. So just based on your, I guess, knowledge of Monahan and kind of, I don't know if you watched his video, but do you feel like this is a guy that can turn it around, or at least, I mean, he's got 1 year left in this deal. What were your thoughts on that whole kind of situation? Kadri and Monahan out. Yeah. And maybe we should just touch on quickly, did the Islanders make a brutal mistake by not dropping that first to dump like the Bailey contract, for example, to do exactly what the Flames did to bring in Kadri? Because I think that's what it was, and Lamoriello was just not having it.
Well, I'll start with the Flames and Monahan. Sure. Addressing Monahan, I think, Monahan's been on the decline a little bit the last handful of years. He hasn't produced like he once did.
Major injury issues.
Lots of injury issues with that guy. Because he was pretty dynamite when he first came on the scene. Going to Montreal, how Montreal acquired him, very, very low buy. I think Montreal did pretty well here, considering they get a first round pick, and he only has 1 year left.
Oh, such a low risk, and you get a first round pick. Kent Hughes looks like a genius.
Yeah, and Montreal's not really challenging this year with some of the other teams in the Atlantic that have stepped up. So I think for Montreal, this is a great trade. And if Monahan, fits into their team, maybe there's some number they can get him at going forward that it works. And if not, he walks and he's a UFA in a year. And then for Calgary, they obviously have to do it to make room for Kadri. So I think this is one of those trades where both teams really win out of it. And good for both teams to do that. I think the Islanders, though, like you alluded to with the Josh Bailey contract, they're in this weird limbo period where, like, at least from a fan's perspective, I don't really know, where they're at right now. I think they definitely can challenge for a playoff spot. And they just had a poor year last year, especially starting on the road with the new building, with the building renovations and all that. But they're definitely not one of the upper echelon teams in the league. They're not deep enough for that. So they're kind of in that in-between phase. I don't know how much a Kadri would have helped. Obviously, you would have made them better, but would it be worth it in the timeline they have with some of their older players? I don't really know. So yeah, what do you think, John, about the Islanders? Like, do you think Kadri would have been a good fit there?
Yeah, yes and no. I think, I was kind of looking at it as a situation, not to say that I think it's directly similar, but I hate to be that guy that just relates things back to the Leafs, but I look at William Nylander, who was drafted as a center. Not as fast as Barzal, but very fast, very skilled. And Nylander's seen so much more success on the wing. So I had this speculation that I was like, imagine a top line of, like, I don't know, Lee, Kadri, Barzal, shift Barzal to the right wing, and then you could stack your next two lines after that. I thought maybe, that would be deep up the middle. The Islanders are deep up the middle regardless. The fact that you have Zizekas as your fourth line, Pajot as your third line, that's depth up the middle. But even more so, having the options of Barzal, Kadri taking faceoffs on different sides, than having Brock Nelson, Pajot. I just thought it would probably work out. And Lamoriello was the guy that gave Kadri his last contract. So I thought maybe there was something there.
But Kadri, he would have walked on first line center on the Islanders. Right in.
That's what I'm saying. It would have been more of an opportunity for the guy. I think that's why, that's the only thing I can understand here. The Flames knew exactly what they had with Monahan and what it would take to dump that contract. So the only thing that makes sense to me is the holdup was because of the New York Islanders and because of Lamoriello. I get this whole joke that he likes to keep secrets, but there's no chance that it was just directly to keep secrets to wait to announce Dobson and Romanoff and Bellows' contracts. He didn't do that just to do it. I'm sorry. I don't believe that. I believe that this was a long thing that went for so long that you have this option to go to the Flames. We will announce the move of Monahan, or you're just going to wait for the Islanders. And I mean, of course, I think it also probably had to do with like him wanting a little bit more money, but let's be real. I mean, we talked about it. Kadri, maybe he would have pushed a little bit higher on that 7, but he was never touching that high 8s or 9 that he was thinking he was going to get per year.
I at one point, I don't know. I at one point thought he could get a higher number than 7, like maybe 8 or more, but I definitely did not think it would be a 7-year deal.
I thought maybe 8 on a shorter term deal, but after seeing what happened even with John Klingberg, like Kadri just won a cup. So we're a different conversation, but I never thought he was going to get like 8 times 7 right out the gate with one of those contenders, just because I thought, I mean, the Avalanche would have, they surprised me with the Nichushkin contract, but outside of that, most teams you're just closing off so many options if you hand out a contract like that, just in a silly way. So I don't know. To me, I think there could have been a fit with the Islanders. I was kind of throwing out a funny hot take, not to say it made much sense, but I was saying, I mean, if the Leafs were so desperately trying to sauce Kerfoot and Hall out of here, finally, I was like, get the Islanders to retain a mil or 1.5 on Bailey and reunite Tavares and Bailey with like the glory days. But I mean, it was half joking on that hot take, but I mean, if it saved like a mil or 2 for the Leafs, and I mean, I don't know. If Tavares and Nylander can figure it out with Robertson, we're not going into too much Leafs talk here, but we are talking about a couple former Leafs.
Yeah, let's move on to
another former Leaf.
Phil the Thrill.
Yeah, another former Leaf. So I got to give myself, I mean, I don't want to pump my tires too much.
You called this one.
I said this back in, I want to say, going back into the playoffs. Well, so when Kessel didn't get traded after the deadline, this is when I first brought it up. I said, when Vegas was missing the playoffs, I first brought this up. And I said, why on earth did Phil Kessel not get traded before the deadline? This is like a guy that, regardless of what you think of him, regardless of like what you think of his work ethic, or like fitness, or whatever you think of Phil Kessel, and you want to make so many jokes, this is a guy that never misses games. This is a guy that in the playoffs is always consistent in terms of production, and a guy that honestly is just fun to watch in the playoffs. Like having Phil Kessel just on Arizona and just sitting there, just whatever he was doing during the summer. And I get he had a newborn, so I think that was an okay year for Phil Kessel to be at home with his family. But I was going into this offseason and I said, man, he's got to go to a playoff team. And I was like, you know what? I could see him signing cheap with one of the Florida teams, but if he wanted to stay close to Arizona, stay close to where he's kind of built his home in the last couple of years, and now a newborn, go to Vegas, man. So I said that after the trade deadline for my free agency prediction video, I said, if he doesn't go back to Arizona, lock in for Vegas. And yes, I entertained Kessel potentially going to like a Calgary, Edmonton, and even more so when Calgary signed Kadri here. I was like, maybe, but I stood solid on Vegas, and I had no sources on that. That was just pure prediction and speculation on my part. And he signed 1 year, 1.5 mil. So I already talked to so many times on why I think it's a great fit, especially after the stupid Pacioretty trade. You at least bring in some scoring back. So what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, right.
You've been a big Kessel guy for both of us for a while.
Yeah, I'm a big Phil guy. I mean, like, we're not going to get into the Leafs, but he would have fit, but it was never going to happen. We knew that. I think first things first, when it came out, when the news broke, I thought, what a perfect cheap replacement for what you're losing with Pacioretty. Obviously, it's not apples to apples. You're not going to get the same production
at all.
No. But it's some production that you're going to get on the wing. I think Vegas right now is starting to, with the contracts they've signed, the money they've given out to Eichel, to Pietrangelo, they're starting to look a little weaker and thinner on the wings. And just at forward in general, but I think more so on the wings. And so I think Phil can come in, play, third line. Maybe he'll get some second power play. Maybe with some injuries, even he's further up the line there. But yeah, I think it's a great fit for Vegas. I think Phil Kessel, he has another chance to play in the playoffs, which is important because the last couple of years he's been on that whatever that team is doing over there in Arizona. But yeah, I think it's an unbelievable fit. It's hopefully I get to see some American Phil Kessel, Jack Eichel magic at some point. I mean, we'll see if they play together at all, but yeah, that'd be fun. I do want to talk about, so I guess let's talk about 3 American players here just quickly. So on the Kessel with Eichel, do you think Eichel is going to, let's just rip through a couple things here. Do you think Eichel's going to bounce back in a way where Vegas can make the playoffs now even with the Kessel edition, and
their goaltending duo of what was just announced, Brossoit and Logan Thompson. So let's both go through this. Then two, I want us to talk about the Patrick Kane trade rumors here. And I mean, Patrick Kane to the Leafs, Patrick Kane to the Oilers, Patrick Kane to the Flames. Is Patrick Kane headed to Canada? So we'll talk about that here. And then we'll talk about, obviously, our upcoming guest here, former Chicago Blackhawk, and of course, other teams, Kris Versteeg. So let's first discuss Eichel, Vegas. Are they making the playoffs, do you think?
I have them making the playoffs, but it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a grind. Rapid fire, I think they're making the playoffs, but it's going to be tight. What about you, John?
Okay, so for myself right now, because of their goaltending situation, I have them just on the outside. That was my latest video. And even with the Kessel edition, I think I so badly want to see Kessel in the playoffs. I think for myself right now, I think it's going to be a three-way race between Vancouver, Calgary, and Vegas. The only reason I say that is I just think.
So you have Edmonton above. I have
Edmonton above, and I honestly can't see LA taking a step back. LA made it the playoffs with the team they had, and I can't see them taking a step back, especially with the Fiala edition.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. LA would have to have very suspect goaltending to miss the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I think Vancouver has as good of a shot as anyone in that Pacific Division if JT Miller stays. We just saw what Calgary did. I think the only thing that would hold Calgary back is just trying to figure things out in the season. If Calgary makes the playoffs, as you said, watch out. Absolutely watch out.
Yeah.
And Vegas for me is just a concern on goaltending. So
okay,
all five of those teams.
Hold us to this. Johnny's got them just out. I got them just in. We'll see what it looks like in April.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
And things have changed. Patty Kane. Do you think so? The big thing, and I want to pull up three things right now, but I just want to pull it up quickly off my mind. I remember seeing this. Patrick Kane, and he said it twice in his response, not just once. He made it clear twice that yes, he was upset that the NHL players weren't going to the Olympics, but do you remember what he was more upset about?
What's that? Refresh my memory.
He was extremely upset that he didn't get the chance to play with Austin Matthews. He didn't get the chance to play on Austin Matthews' wing. He brought it up twice, like in response. He said that, and then added to his response and saying that they stay in touch throughout the year. He admires Austin Matthews' shot. They stay in touch, feedback both sides on their skill set, and he recognizes that he's the next big time. I mean, he's the current big time American. So do you think Bissonnette, Paul Bissonnette's going crazy online? He's going
nuts.
Out of your mind. Yeah. If you don't think Dubas is doing it.
Johnny, you see his tweet today? What number is Patty Kane going to wear on the Leafs this year?
Yeah. I mean, here's my part here. The guy is from Buffalo. Yeah. It's not too far of a trip from Toronto to Buffalo. I'm not buying into this too much. I'll just say that there is enough to point towards that it's not completely a silly conversation. It's close to Buffalo. He'd play with Austin Matthews. And at the very least, I mean, if the Leafs were trying to trade for him, I can't see Patrick Kane saying no to that idea over what he has right now.
Yeah.
So do you see a Patrick Kane trade one? Because I've already talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
And do you see one of the Canadian teams, including the Leafs, as a potential?
I see a Patrick Kane trade happening. Yes. I think that he values being a Chicago Blackhawk. And I think he would like, I think an option for him is he would like to finish his career there. Having said that, the direction they're going, they're really trying to push, in my opinion, Kane and Toews out the door and get this rebuild. Yeah. I mean, they've even talked about Seth Jones moving, and they've just signed him. So I think the Blackhawks, from their perspective, they'd want to trade him. And if the Leafs were on the table, it's really going to come down to, is Kyle Dubas and the Leafs serious about it? Because I think the Leafs and the Blackhawks, they have a good relationship when it comes to trades. And I think if Patrick Kane has the opportunity to play with Austin Matthews, he'd for sure jump at that. I just cannot see him turning that down. So I think he will get traded. And I think the Leafs, if they want to be in the conversation, they could certainly be in it. But if he gets traded, it will be to a contending team. Yeah, that's my guess.
And I'm just saying this because I've said this about recent additions to the Leafs, and even Giordano. I know he is actually from Toronto, but the fact that he stayed even after another first round exit, I think if Patrick Kane, if the Leafs did trade for him and took that chance and traded prospects, whether it's Matthew Nyes, Robertson, have your opinions out there if you would do that. But what I'm saying is that if they did it, and with Patrick Kane, the Leafs show that they could go a couple rounds, that gives an incentive to a guy like Patrick Kane that, we can freaking do it with this team. Mm-hmm. So that's the big risk. Dubas, I get it. People are like, oh, this guy did the big move with the Kadri trade and the Barry and Kerfoot. Oh, Dubas took the big risk with getting Nick Foligno. Like, are we hearing those? Are we hearing the players that just left my mouth? Sure, those were stupid moves that were coming from big risks, but that wasn't a big risk, gigantic award. This Kane trade would be the big risk, gigantic award potentially. So
this is the best. This is the best American player of all time. Like, so up to date.
So what I'm saying is I'm not completely sold on it as a realistic thing, and I'm not buying into the rumors yet, but in terms of something that the Leafs should go after, I mean, I don't care if everyone that still thinks the Leafs, I mean, anyone that watched the Leafs, especially except for 1 or 2 games in that Tampa series, like the Leafs defense was not the problem. Like the Leafs defense hasn't been the problem until, like, go back to the Lamoriello days and watch Zaitsev, Connor Carrick, and Jake Gardiner. No disrespect to those guys, but those guys take up minutes versus now seeing guys like Brody, Muzzin, Riley, Giordano take up big minutes. It's night and day. Mm-hmm. So enough with this old story of the Leafs defense being bad. They're above average, and it's not necessarily the problem anymore. You need playoff performers. Patrick Kane's a playoff performer. So let's move on from that. But I would say if there's an opportunity to do it, you do it. I don't know if it's possible, at least.
Yep.
Okay, just quickly, and then we'll just go into the Versteeg. We'll get Versteeg on. World Juniors. How crazy was that, McTavish? I mean, just to quickly touch on it. I mean, I was live streaming for it. Were you watching it live and going psychotic?
Yeah. So I was watching it live, and unbelievable, that play by McTavish. But I saw an NHL Network piece that we did at NHL Network that was showing the top goal line clearances. And, you know, you think of, was it Ryan Pulock? It was Ryan McDonough. Ryan Pulock. Yeah. So that you think of ones like that, right? And there was one, it was on an empty netter. It was in Florida, but I've seen a handful of these, but this McTavish one is pretty next level.
It's insane.
Like,
yeah.
It might be the greatest.
And the time of the game, it's insane. And the fact that under a minute later or 2 minutes later, whatever it was, they go back and score is insane. And I mean,
unbelievable.
I think it wasn't talked about enough that besides all that happening, like McTavish and Bedard spent the first 3 minutes of overtime on the ice.
Yeah.
Like McTavish looked like he had some bricks next to his feet after that whole sequence. So
look out for McTavish this year. That's for Anaheim. I think I don't know about, we were just talking about their division, the Pacific Division. I don't necessarily see Anaheim pushing for playoffs, but I think McTavish is going to have a breakout year for sure.
Oh, he could definitely be up for Calder. So we'll see what happens. And just to move into Versteeg conversation again, guys, honestly, super thankful we're going to be able to get Versteeg on this episode. One of those players that I would say I had a lot of like favorite players that I up front, at least, like I liked watching Versteeg. Like Lupul was another guy I liked watching, and guys that were part of a lot of successful teams. And Versteeg, a lot of people could say their stops with Toronto weren't successful, but outside of that, Versteeg was still a guy that was significant enough to produce on good teams, and obviously Chicago be a part of it. So we're gonna bring Versteeg on. Lucas, any kind of thoughts or anything to say before we get into this Versteeg chat and talk to Kris?
I'm just really excited for you guys to see it. I'm hyped to talk to a former Leaf player and a former NHLer who had great success. So let's do it. Let's send it over to Kris.
Yep. Let's chat with Kris and talk about the two cups, talk about some latest NHL news, and talk about his new company, Klevr. Let's talk to Kris Versteeg.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. We're introducing right here. I'd like to introduce our special guest to the Hot Take Hockey podcast. This former NHLer played in 14 seasons across 7 different teams, and he's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with Chicago Blackhawks. Let's welcome Kris Versteeg to the show. Kris, how's it going?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming aboard. So I remember I listened to the Spit and Chicklets podcast a few years back, and you threw out the idea of this app that you're now working on, Klevr, with your brother. And it's great to see that it's come to fruition and it's really, blossoming now. How about you touch on it for our fans and stuff, and just talk about what Klevr brings? Yeah,
it's actually crazy. There was nothing basically prior to Spit and Chicklets. There was no tech. We didn't have a roadmap. We had an idea, me and my buddy, but we didn't know if we were actually going to go out and try to execute it. And I remember talking at Spit and Chicklets, it was about creating a 2-way communication more efficiently between a coach and a parent, coach and an athlete, and a coach, like those 3 pillars. Mm-hmm. And that process before basically used to take me about an hour. So when I retired, kids would send me video. It'd take me about an hour, and I'd be on 2 to 3 different platforms in order to get the video back to them. And what we've tried to do is streamline that process of a clip, edit, and share. And basically what used to take an hour just to do a 30 or 40 second edited video or annotated video on 2 to 3 platforms. Now I could edit and look at 36 kids' shots. So I could edit and help 36 kids in under an hour. So that's just the speed and the efficiency of what Klevr is now, the video sharing, to be able to draw and voice it over. You can pull 2 videos up at one time, and it's just real efficient. It's for all sports and fitness. Obviously, we've entered the market through hockey, being the most natural progression, but we want it to be for all sports and fitness. And I think we're on our way. We have about 9 sports on the platform. Hockey's our biggest one. And I'm very proud of that, because hockey is obviously very near and dear to my heart for numerous reasons, as you know, but it's just crazy. Yeah. You look back to Spit and Chicklets, there's literally nothing. It was an idea, and it was more of a frustration with me and a problem in the market of something that wasn't there. And that's what we've tried to do, is solve a problem that, when we've talked to hundreds and hundreds of coaches and thousands of parents and athletes, they all had the same problem.
Awesome. Good start there. I wanted to ask more about it in detail too. In terms of, I think it's such a valuable tool, it seems like, for kids and people getting into sports, but then also refining skills and particular skills, whether it be shot or whatever. So as far as this tournament that you alluded to when we were talking offline there, what's this tournament bring when it comes to tomorrow? I believe that's tomorrow for you were saying.
Yeah, so the Klevr Young Kings, that's my academy program. We work with kids the age 5 all the way to 9, and Klevr's used literally every day. So just a couple of examples is we have digital whiteboards. I'll take the digital whiteboards. I'll send the practice plans. It's basically a whiteboard. You can move it around, turn it around, draw on it, voice it over, send it to your coaches, rather than before it'd be like a piece of paper, and then you write it on the side, or you'd be videoing yourself drawing on a whiteboard. Now you can throw that all out. You can just do this and send your practice plans. We also use it for capturing highlights, because we have this camera record function where you can record for 5 minutes. If nothing happens and a kid doesn't score a goal, you don't tap this K button. It's a clip button, and it goes back 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds, whatever you want the clip length to be. And it'll delete the first 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. So again, we'll have a parent record the entire game. If there's 5 goals at the end of the game, that parent will have recorded roughly between 10 and 30 seconds of video. They'll be able to share all the highlights to the players. Not only that, I have them record certain teachable moments that we want to teach the kids. So at night, they'll send me the clips. I'll draw on them, voice them over, and send them to all the parents for teachable moments, right? And then, like you said, the other pieces of the game, skill refinement, shot refinement. You have your athletes send you, they're shooting in the driveway. You can tell them and give them a few tidbits, things and details that they wouldn't know prior. And if you look at technique, it's better to have a kid shoot 10 pucks, not the mentality, maybe. Not for mentality. You want a kid to go out and shoot 500 pucks, but just if you think of technique, it's better to have a kid shoot 10 pucks correctly than 100 wrong, right? Because the improvement you're going to make will be significant rather than shooting it wrong. So that's what we try to do, is create the right technique, show them, because it's actually about a 60% higher retention rate if an athlete or someone in fitness can see what they're doing and then change the mechanic and change what they're doing. So if they can start to retain the information at a younger age, create the technique at a younger age, then obviously you can stack other skills on top of that much faster than at 10, 12, 14 if you get these players. And it's like, oh, we got to learn how to shoot now. When
you got to correct. You have to recorrect stuff they've learned all these years as kids.
All of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now it's like, well, let's get on to the next thing that they're doing well or struggling at, right? So that's what we're hoping, especially with Klevr and working with these young athletes, especially with my programs. By the time they get to 10, 11, 12, they already have the good technique. They're working well. Again, they're always going to be refining and improving. Some players are better at a young age because of athleticism, and some are touched by the hand of God, like, Connor McDavid. There's just certain guys and certain kids that have it, but others need that help. And then with Klevr, it's just it's incredible how many kids, how fast you can help, and how much improvement you see them make over a short amount of time with the video correction.
Awesome.
Just to throw a question at you, Kris, obviously regarding your company, but being a former player, how has it worked out in terms of communication, like bringing other guys on? So I just recently saw you brought on Peter Budaj. So Like, how has that communication been, and just like kind of the relationships, and obviously a lot of players you communicated and interacted with over the years? Has that been kind of pretty easy in that sense, or is there a lot of kind of channels or levels to that communication and bringing guys on?
Yeah, there's a lot of channels and levels. We've actually had, I would say, about 50 ex-NHLers that have came on the app that have children, and they just want to use it with their kids to be able to say, hey, look at you at this shift, or look at this and that. So we have about 50 on. Peter Budaj, again, I don't want to speak for him, but he actually just reached out through our coach verification method. And I've never known Peter. I've messaged him, and I would love to hop on with him and really show him how to utilize it, because he is a goalie coach. So I would love to have him in our coaches marketplace as well. Again, that's something that we're going to have to talk about. But guys like Peter, they found us obviously through friends and family and maybe third parties. But a lot of the other guys, Andrew Ladd, I'll just call him like, hey, do you want to try the app out? And he tried it with his kids. He loved it. And now he's an investor in Klevr, right? So it's really interesting. Again, you got to go through different channels to get to certain guys, but guys that are close in your inner circle, you just ask them to try it. And once they use it and they see the benefits, then they start using it more and they tell their friends. And then again, you hope over time it gets more of that network effect where more players can come on, because we actually do have a very well, it's like a cameo feature within our app, right? It's very similar. It's different, but it's similar in the same way that you could reach out to Kris Versteeg and have him say good luck to your U17 before a game, right? You can reach out to a local WHL player who's a celebrity there. And if everyone loves him in that community, you could reach out to him, say, hey, could you reach out to my U8 team and say good luck today, right? So we're actually trying to onboard a lot of these athletes in small areas to get them on to be giving, they could sell their services. It could be 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, whatever they demand the price, but also making them connect to the grassroots programs more, make them more connect with the community, give them another sense of revenue. And that's what we're trying to really show these athletes, especially the East Coast athletes and retired athletes. Like, you can come on Klevr now and you have another sense of, or another revenue stream. You can have a passive revenue stream in the sense that you can create drill packs and packs as well that you could sell, that if you create the content, you put it on there, people could buy it from you. So it's, again, there's a lot of different pieces to this and reaching out to other athletes. But I think, again, just getting out there, telling players, the network effect, and obviously coming on shows like yourself, that helps get it into their hands.
Awesome. I mean, speaking as a kid who grew up playing hockey here in Canada, and as someone who wasn't very good at hockey, I think this would have been a great tool for someone like myself to, help refine my skills at a young age and put myself on a better path. But, taking it back to when you were, first breaking into your junior career, I know that you played defense in junior a little bit there, or was it all through junior? I just wanted to ask, how was that transition from defense to forward?
Yeah, I'll touch on the defense. You're talking about yourself not being a good player, though. I do want to touch on that. It's for everyone, right? Obviously, you teeter it, or you have the tools in there that'll help certain athletes get to next levels, but it's also there to capture everyone's moment, that camera function. So we have all athletes on it. So that's why I just want to make sure it's not just for the elite.
Yes.
Or the you want to make sure this is for everyone, and Klevr it's a free app and it's for everyone. But it will help you share moments as well. Now I'm done selling. So back to my career though. It was kind of funny. So I played D a lot in roller hockey, basically from the age of 12 to 17. And I played center as a 16-year-old, center as a 17-year-old, wing as an 18-year-old. And I played D, though, basically up until I was 11 as well in minor hockey. But going to the Red Deer Rebels, a bunch of players got hurt. Brent was in Team Canada because he was coaching Team Canada in that 04-05 or the 05 year. And Dallas Gom came in the room. We had 3D get hurt. He's like, has anyone played D before? Right? This is like end of October, start of November. And I'm like, I play it in roller hockey. He's like, you're on. You're playing D. And I'm like, all right. And I played pretty good that day. And then I ended up playing the rest of the year. And I remember Brent saying, like, if you come back to Red Deer, right? If you come back to Red Deer, I will turn you into a D-man, and I can guarantee you I can get you an NHL contract. I still remember the talk with him, right? He's like, I think I can get you an NHL contract, but it'll be as a D-man, not as a forward. So I played the rest of the year as D. I didn't think Boston really liked me much anymore. They drafted me as a forward. I didn't think I was going to sign there. But what happened is they brought me into Providence, turned me back to a forward at the start or when I got brought up as a 19-year-old, and I played really well as a forward. And then Boston offered me a league minimum signing bonus and a contract with the Bruins. And I was kind of shocked, right? I basically finished that year thinking I was coming back to Red Deer as a D-man, played really good over a month and a half span in Providence, worked for an NHL contract, and had to flip my my positioning again. But playing D was, I mean, I think it helped me understand the game and the work rate and see the ice differently and understand the game to another level. And I do, you know, it hurt me in how much money I got, because I would have loved to get 100 points as a forward, right? And light it up and play run and gun. So it hurt me in my pocket, you know, as a signing bonus, but I think it helped my pocket in the long end, or in the long run, because it taught me so many more valuable lessons about the game that I took into the pros, that I would basically take from that and then implement it into my game. And then I would be playing D on the power play in Toronto. I played D on the power play in Chicago and Calgary, right? So there's so many positives that came out of it. I was very short-sighted in that time of it. I'm like, you know, I'm playing D, I'm going to get screwed out of a big bonus. And that's when you used to make $1 million as a rookie bonus. And I was never going to get that, but you get a heck of a lot more than you are now. Right. So that's how I remember thinking. But, you know, when it all came to fruition at the end, you look back and you're very grateful for that lesson and everything Brent did for me.
Kris, so with obviously you talked a lot about Klevr, and you have your kids, your fam. Do you still kind of keep in touch with like outside even Klevr? Do you keep in touch with a lot of guys you played with, and do you still kind of follow the league and just hockey in general obviously on a professional aspect? Because I know obviously you keep in touch with hockey on the grassroots level a lot right now, and obviously with your kids, but do you follow along with the NHL?
Oh yeah, I follow along, especially with the Flames, Oilers, and Leafs, just because, you know, Flames, I had a lot of really good friends, and I actually still do. Huberto lived at my house as a rookie in Florida.
Wow.
So now he's with the Flames. So I always follow Flames, Oilers, and Leafs, and I always will. And I'm hoping, you know, maybe to get back into a little bit of media this year. I don't know how much I can dedicate myself to with Klevr and with the Young Kings and everything we have going on. But yeah, I love following the league. I like following the up and coming young players. I got to meet Trevor Zegras at the skills competition this year. Just a great kid. What a talent. I wish they would have celebrated what he did on the ice a little bit more at the event.
Yeah.
Because what he did was insanely special and it should be celebrated. I think those are moments that the NHL misses, and I still currently do think. I love the NHL. It's given me everything I had, but I just think the athletes and everything we have, it should be so much bigger. It should be so much broader. And a lot of it should go into grassroots programs into other countries. There should be money poured into grassroots programs to lower the cost, because at the end of the day, you're going to lower the cost now, but you're going to create better product and you're going to have more money in the back end, right? Obviously, these guys are big businessmen and I don't need to tell them that, but I think that a lot of these people who've tried to make the game bigger have been handcuffed for far too long. So I just want to see the game celebrated more. So when guys like Zegras do what they did, it should be celebrated. Like there should be guys standing up going nuts. You think of all the greatest slam dunk contests, what were those guys doing, right? You know, they're all grabbing 100%. Each other like, oh, you know, this is wild. Like that's how wild that was, right? Like it should have been celebrated by the judges, by the panels, by everyone. And everyone was like, oh, what, you know, I'm like, what is going on here? So I just think there's another level our game, even continually watching, we need to go to, and we got to accept that, you know, the game is hard, it's fast, it could even be more talented, right? I still think there's some ways that they can open the game up even more to make it more exciting. And I think it can go there, but it also has to come from, you know, the people at the top allowing the creativity of the players and the personalities. Like, why is there no Netflix thing for the NHL? You know what I mean?
Yeah, look what what's happened with F1. Like F1's barely followed, and now they're dropping series left and right, and people are just completely invested.
F1 was done, like, not done, but like, man, the following of F1 was not there, right? They didn't have the younger fans, they didn't have the younger audience. They went into Netflix. Like the NHL should be at the doorstep, willing to sell the players, sell the personalities, and create content for them to see. Again, yeah, we can go on Instagram all we want and do live. That doesn't matter. We want to see really well done, well crafted storylines. They want to see what Netflix did. And Amazon did it too a little bit, but it still was not that well done. The Leafs one,
it was still toned
the Leafs
down.
series.
It was like still like the cameras didn't even look legit all the time. Like the camera work. Like when you're watching the F1, it's like you're captivated by the incredible camera work, and they did incredible jobs telling stories, and they have not done that. I'm like, how is the NHL not jumped 2 feet into trying to do something like this?
Yeah, it's unbelievable that F1 has like boomed because of that Netflix series. And I know so many people in John and I's age demographic that like had no interest in F1. And now it's such a big thing because of that. So totally agree. The NHL's got to lean into that and sell those special players and those special personalities like an Austin Matthews, like a Trevor Zegras, these type of guys.
What's the worst that can happen?
Pivoting a little back to Calgary, because I know you mentioned you follow the Flames a little bit, and you were roommates with Jonathan Huberdeau. As far as the Flames look, just your reaction to the trade, landing Huberdeau and Weegar, and then now signing Kadri, bringing him aboard. I know you played with him a little bit in Toronto,
and you also played with Monahan, so quite a few players. And then we were even joking earlier in the show before bringing you on. It's like Kessel just signs with Vegas. Like a bunch of your former guys you played with are just in the news lately.
All the older guys. It's just crazy. I have a pretty big trade tree, right? I don't even want to look at it. I know someone tried to show me it one time. I'm like, don't even show me it. I try to act like it doesn't exist. But the Flames, it was obviously losing Johnny and someone who's that creative offensively and dynamic hurts the team. I was questioning the whole time if how he would do under Daryl. Obviously, he flourished under Daryl the second go around, not the first go around. But I questioned that. So Jonathan Huberdeau to me seems more of a Daryl type of player, just a guy that's a little more straightforward. He plays the game a little more straightforward, a little less risk to his game. So I think he's a little bit more Daryl style player. Now, again, going into a team, high expectations first year, it's always hard to perform. That's the thing. That's a bit of the problem. So I always kind of look at how will these two players do in year 2 for the Flames. They could come in and they could blow the doors off. They could be better. Will they be better than they were last year? I don't think so. I don't think they'll be as good as they were with a comfortable Huberdeau or with a comfortable Gaudreau and a comfortable Tkachuk. I think, and again, Kadri coming off a cup run, not as much time to train. He broke his hand. I just think they will be good. They're going to be a hard game. They're going to make the playoffs. But I think this team's really going to be a better team in another year from now. I know Huberdeau's, he'll be 31 then, and Kadri as well. But I look at that second year with these two as the year to win it. This year as well. They have to try to win it this year. They have
especially with Weegar as well. Like he's on his last year of his deal. I mean, they got to go for it this year. But
you got to go for it this year. I agree. I just think if I'm looking at the realistic possibility, I think it's year 2 with this team. I hope the cap goes up in year 2 and maybe there's a little more spend they can do, and their team's right there. I think they are close. I just think getting out against Edmonton and maybe a healthy Vegas is obviously very tough, but they're a good team. They're right there with them. I just don't know if they'll be at the exact level they were last year.
So Kris, you had your 2 stints with the Hawks and obviously a couple cups to show for. Obviously looking at that situation right now, do you still follow the team a bit? And obviously a lot has happened with the team, and now Kane and Toews, like what's going to happen there? I don't know if you've been following along lately, but Kane Bizanek going crazy saying you're crazy to think Kane and Dubas is not going to go after Kane for Toronto. Like, have you been following kind of that storyline, and like what was it to play with 2 players like Kane and Toews, win cups, and to kind of see that situation now? I guess
they're 2 of the most special people I know. I owe almost everything I have to them, right? Besides all the work and effort I put into it. But when you're a young player and you get dropped into a situation to play with 2 of the best and most clutch players of all time, and you win 2 Stanley Cups with them, and you're allowed to be called a Stanley Cup champion because of them, I'm very grateful. I always said, if it wasn't for them, I'd still be standing at the back of a line getting into a bar, right? And so I'm very, very thankful for Kane and Toews every day, and the people they are, and everything they've done to me, and the people they become. They've been through a lot, both of them. And at the end of the day, all they've ever wanted to do is help people, help their friends, help kids, give back. I don't think people quite understand the hearts these guys have and everything they give each and every day into the community and into their game, into their craft to make their fans happy. So I haven't followed the Hawks too much in the last bit. I saw a little bit at where was it? Was it the draft when they
Draft.
Yeah, so
When
I
they
saw the
traded
draft.
Kirby Doc.
Yeah, they traded Doc, they traded DeBrincat. Those are pieces, obviously, they're trying to go younger. It's, obviously Doc is only 21. I wonder what they thought his upside was. That's probably the problem, right? What is Doc's true upside, and what are we going to get from him in 2 years rather than this year? So that trade for me is still yet to be determined. That's like, I don't know what his upside is now. I have no idea. He's a very good player. He's talented, but will he garner a 12th overall pick in 2 years? I have no idea. So I get what the Hawks are doing. I understand what the Hawks are doing, but I don't really follow them too much right now, to be honest. It's more the teams here.
Do you have an opinion on that, though? Do you think they should retire there, or with all the Patty Kane trade rumors right now?
Yeah, and I haven't talked to Kane and Toews. And again, when I was a little in the media, I watched how I talked to them as well, just because they're players and I don't want them to think I'm prying at them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was a part of the media, so when I would talk to them, it was honestly never about hockey. It was just, hey, how's the family? How you doing? Congrats on your kid. And still to this day, I get all my friends messaging me about Kane coming to Toronto, especially from out here where, I live here now and people are going nuts. And I said, any American player wanting to come to Canada in today's climate is crazy. I would never come play in Canada right now, just to be brutally honest. Right.
No, fair enough.
Not even just from like a financial perspective. No. You mean beyond that, obviously.
Well, again, it depends like how much money is going to change my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the money coming to play in Canada? Having issues at borders, family coming, there's just zero chance American players. I mean, maybe he does. I've never talked to him about this, but if this is me talking, I would ever come play in Canada in this climate. There's just no chance. It's just, you can't get your family across at times. You can't do this. It's like, well, what the hell is going on? So if you're an American player and you want to see your family throughout the year and you want to do things and you want to live your life, well, then you got to go back to the States. So if I was an American player, there's zero chance I'd come play in Canada unless it was life-changing money, right? Mm-hmm. Life-changing money. If it was like, if I'm going to get 5 million here and 4 million here, or 500,000 here, or 500,000 there, I am not coming to Canada. There's no chance. So that's just my true opinion of what I believe. Now, what they do, I have no idea. I do think that both of them, this is my own perspective on it, I do think both of them should leave Chicago prior to the season. I just think when you go to a team mid-season, you're never comfortable. You're never fully comfortable. Again, it always depends. I don't know what their roadmap is for their careers or what they want to do, but I know for me, I'd want to be at the new team at training camp, getting used to the guys, getting used to the city, getting used to the systems at the start of the camp. So if they ever heard this, which they don't give a shit what I think, which they shouldn't, but I would tell them to get out and go, to where they'd want to go now rather than wait to the trade deadline. Now there's always all things that play into it, kids, family, logistics. Even if they want to do it, I have no idea. Never talked to them about it. So there's a lot of other things at play, but I just know from a comfortability factor, that's what I'd want to do.
Well, and being through it, right? I think, was there not a time, I think it was from the Panthers to the Blackhawks, if my memory is correct, where you got traded mid-season?
And to the Kings, right?
And to the Kings,
so going to a new team.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, especially with those guys, like I'm a player that always did well when I was comfortable because I relied on a lot of small plays adding up to a big play. So like a little chip pass, a little, backhand pass through skates, or just something that you need to be comfortable to make those plays. And when you're on a new team and you have these expectations, you're coming in, you're filling a role, you might not have the same role as your other team. You might not have the same ice time. It's a very hard mental transition. Now, that's why sometimes at the deadline, when you see these guys brought in that don't have to have the expectations and they're just brought in and sometimes they're given more of a role, that's why they succeed, right? Because they almost come into this new team with a mindset like, well, I'm probably not going to play as much. or I'm not expected to be this guy or that. So, Andrew Kopp goes to Rangers. He's expected just to be a depth guy. He ends up playing on the second line, right? It's a bit of a different mindset. But if you're going as more of a top guy or a guy that's expected to make plays and be in the top six, I think it's a little more tough to make that transition midseason.
Yeah.
I was just going to add, you're talking to two Toronto guys here. Obviously, we remember a lot of what you did with Chicago and stuff, but we were also joking around before that the one memory we had from you watching you play for Toronto was I think it was, what was it, Lucas? It was like a minute left, Toronto,
Boston. Versus the Bruins. Yeah,
it was Tabule, slid it across, point shot, and then you tucked it back door. I remember getting pretty amped on that one.
Yeah, that was like last minute. It was, and then Tim Thomas came and swung his stick, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I mean, man, I loved playing in Toronto. It was good. It was just tough because we weren't the best team. I was coming from a Stanley Cup winning team. You're coming here and then you're in the fishbowl of hockey and you're just not the best team, but we had a bunch of great guys. I had an enjoyable experience here. I thought it sucked that it didn't get to last forever. I wish I would have stayed in Toronto rather than go to Philadelphia at the time and still do. I looked at it as a pretty good experience. I was just starting to get rolling. I think I had 31 points in my last 32 games. I was just feeling good. And then you end up getting traded, and that's another mid-season trade. You're going to a team that's expected to win a cup. You're taking guys ice time. Like I still remember, taking one guy's ice time on the power play and they weren't that happy about it. And then you as a player are like, oh man, I didn't come in here to piss my teammate off, so it's a tough transition to make. And then, then I end up basically not playing power play for the Flyers. So it's like, because you don't want to rock the boat either. So you don't say shit. So you're just like, all right, I'll just come in here and do what I got to do. But then the fans all expected me to come in and score. So it's like, it was a tough transition, but I was happy for the experience, but I wish I would have stayed in Toronto that year. I really do. And wish I would have tried to finish it out with them.
Yeah. I remember when you had signed with the Leafs, like you were alluding to it before, but you relied as a player on a lot of the small things, and you were very effective offensively as well, but just like the small things, chipping pucks, being hungry on pucks, playing physical. So yeah, when you came to the Leafs as a Leaf fan, I was stoked and through the moon about it. Obviously the Leafs weren't a great team, like you said at the time, and it's unfortunate. But as far as Phil Kessel goes, I want to touch on Phil Kessel quickly because he's on, he's just moved to Vegas. What was it like playing with Phil, like the personality and the hockey player? And then what do you think about that fit for Kessel on Vegas?
He is one of the best guys, honestly. He was my roommate in Toronto. And I still remember when I was traded, we were in Boston. I landed in Boston, told the guys I got traded, went to Philly, obviously, or I went to Tampa Bay that night. And then Phil where was he? He got interviewed, I think, in the lobby of the hotel. And I could see it on his face. They're like, how do you feel about the Kris trade? And, and he was just like, I'm not good about it. I lost one of my good friends. And I was like, right then and there, I was like, oh, I love you, Phil. You're a good guy, and me and him roomed together. First 3 quarters of the season, we told jokes, we laughed. We had a great time together. But, that moment when I saw that interview, he could have really said anything and he could have done just something by the book and said whatever, but he said something that was honest and it meant a lot to me. So I'm very thankful for Phil for the friendship. He was, again, the funniest guy. I've told numerous stories. I think you've heard on Spit and Chicklets about him always being like, oh, my eyes, the blind, the sun's coming in, in the morning. Just, it was like constant stuff like that where I'd be like, Phil, stand up and close the blinds. He's like, you close them. And I'd be like, his bed would be right next to the blinds and mine would be near the washroom. Right.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. But it was constant comedy. But at the end of the day, how many games has he played? Right. He's played 17 years.
Unbelievable.
I think he's at 980 something straight right now. Right. So he's about to push the Ironman streak coming into the year.
Yeah. I mean, it's insanity. I couldn't string 100 games together, just with injury and sickness and just everything being scratched later on. Right. There's just so many things. And the fact that he's doing this, and especially Phil, like his body, people have made fun of, or his personality or whatever it may be, the fact that he is just crushing it is amazing. And, it couldn't happen to a better guy.
Yeah. And then, so what are your thoughts on him joining the Golden Knights now?
Oh yeah. The Golden Knights. I think it's interesting. I think the Golden Knights, they're a mess, right? They, them letting Fleury go, for me was one of the stupidest moves I've ever seen.
So dumb.
Just stupid. You brought in, again, I don't know Robin Leonard that well. I was with him at a camp. He's a nice guy, but you brought in Leonard, who is, he had one good year for 5.5, and you let Fleury go at 7. And Fleury was still playing up to his pay grade, up to his contract. And he loved being in Vegas. So I just thought they got too greedy at that moment, right? They had 2 goalies. They should have probably kept Fleury. They got greedy, hoping that, Leonard could do what Fleury does. And obviously that hasn't come fruition yet. And he's had injuries, so it's not Robin Leonard's fault as well. But you had the guy there, right? You had this guy. And I think that's where the downfall of the Vegas Golden Knights is technically gone, is in that goalie crease. Now you look at them this year, there's Thompson. So now when you look at Phil, I think he's going to help. I think he's going to add depth. I think he's going to be a little reinvigorated. He's going to have excitement to come to the rink every day, where in Arizona, you're like, geez, let this game end. 5 minutes into the game, he's probably like, get me out of here. It's horrible. That's what I'm almost certain that's what it was like. And, now you go to Vegas, they have a good team. You hope that energy comes back to the city. It's an incredible city. But I mean, how many goals does Phil have to score to help the goaltending out? I don't know. So if the goalies are good, if they're good enough, that team can make the playoffs. But if the goalies aren't good, you're going to see another season like this.
Man, I really hope they throw Kessel on that power play with Eichel, Stone, Petrangelo. That would be unreal. Yeah. Chris, thank you honestly so much for coming on. We really appreciate the time and to be able to talk about Klevr, give us some more info on it. And for myself, and I'm sure Lucas as well, we'll definitely keep an eye on your progress on that and the company and what you and your brothers got going on. But again, we do really appreciate the time. You tell us a few stories as well. And obviously coming on the Hot Take Hockey Show, we appreciate it.
Yeah. And I'm very thankful for anyone who's willing to give a platform to, especially my company. And, as you guys know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. So thank you guys very much for giving us a platform to speak about it.
Of course. Yeah. Let's stay in touch, and we'll be in touch and speak again in the future for sure.
Yeah. Reach out anytime.
Right. Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Have a good day.
Later, guys.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching. From Lucas and myself, John, the Viveiros boys got you coming with a big show this season, and with the live streams, with the video content, but now the big show. We're excited to bring some guests. We're excited to bring a lot of excitement, and we're excited to bring the big show for this season. So have a good one. We'll chat soon, and look out for the episodes to come. Peace.